What's up guys, my name is Wouters right here, and today in episode 3 of learning how to longboard, we're gonna talk all about tricks. So this new series is a series in which I teach you guys how to longboard from the very basics in the first video to some more and more advanced stuff throughout the videos. So today is all about tricks, how I learn them faster and more durable. To be honest with you, I'm not a quick learner, I'm actually a slow learner, and today we're talking all about that. Now you might be thinking, well, why is he giving it away for free, all that information? Well, I think there are already enough people who are like, nah, I'm not gonna say that because I'm not gonna give someone else an advantage over me. And secondly, I think we can all just grow the most if we grow together. So let's get started. Trial and error, boy. So the way we learn tricks is something called trial and error. It's a process in which we try something. If it works, we get some sort of positive feedback from it. And if it doesn't work, we try something else. It's like you get a whole bunch of keys right here and you get a lock to open. And you're just gonna pick one, try it out. If it works, you're gonna be happy. If it doesn't, well, you're just trying something new. That's called trial and error. Now when you're learning tricks, we go to the same process actually. So maybe you try a trick for 50 times, you get closer to landing it at the 50th time. Now your body gets some sort of positive feedback, which is a chemical which is released into your body that's called dopamine. Now that's something that makes you feel good. It's the same feeling of when you achieve something or when you win something. That's dopamine. So your body now wants to get that dopamine again. So what it's gonna do is gonna try to do the behavior again that it did when he get that dopamine. So even though we're not consciously like being like, oh, maybe I need to try this, your body is going to react in a certain way so that it gets that dopamine again. So it wants to do the trick because it feels good. You feel good because of that. So now maybe after 30 times, 30 tries, you're getting closer to landing the trick again. You get another shot of dopamine, body feels good again. And like that you get closer and closer to landing it because subconsciously your body is craving for that dopamine. So the good news is that because of that we're naturally learning new things, but the bad news is that it takes a really long time to learn tricks like that because you're not consciously about it. Trial and error is something that takes a long time, but I'm gonna give you some cheats, some shortcuts through that route of trial and error, which we all have to go through, that I do in order to land my tricks faster.
Breaking the trick down.
So the big advantage will be is that we can break tricks down into simple steps. Now let's take the example of a shove it throughout this video. A shove it, what it essentially is, if we really cut it into pieces, is that you wind up your shoulders, you go through your knees, unwind, shift your balance, jump up a bit, front foot swings that way, back foot swings that way, your back foot has to go back to the front, land, look at your board, go to your knees again, and that's it. That's the shove it. Those are all the steps that you have to do in order to do the shove it. And the good news is that it's like an instruction for a cooking recipe. Like if I give you instructions how to cook a certain meal, then you might suck at cooking, but after a few tries you're gonna be able to make that recipe. Versus when I just tell you, well, here's a meal, make me that without instructions, well, that's gonna take a long time. For tricks, it's kind of the same. If we get an instruction, if I tell you all the steps you have to do in order to land the trick, then you can just focus on all the steps and you can be like, oh, this is a step that I got down, check that one. Oh, this one is something I need to work on. So we still have to go through the trial and error, but if you know the big pieces of the trick, then it becomes way easier to learn it. So it's clear that knowing all the motions of a trick holds a big advantage while learning it, and I'm gonna talk about some more advantages more at the end of the video. But if you think critically, you might be like, well, Hans, if I'm learning the trick, I don't know the motions yet. And that's a very good point, and that's what we're going to talk about right now, and that's how you can figure out the trick. I think there are 3 main ways you can figure it out. I'm gonna talk about each and every one of them. Let's go! External resources. So the first way is through external resources. This is probably the easiest way. This can go from trick tips to watching someone and analyzing how they do it, to skating with someone in person and asking them how to do it, them giving you tips. So there's a lot of way you can get external resources on how to do the trick. If I make a trick tip, I always break the trick down into pieces so that I can give you as much information as possible, so that you have that clear instruction on how to do it, because I've already gone through the trial and error, so I figured out what works and what doesn't work. But of course you can't rely on others to learn every trick, everything in longboarding. First of all, others don't know everything. Secondly, there are a lot of advantages to figuring it out yourself too. So that brings us to our second point, second way to learn the motions of a trick: figuring it out yourself. So most of the time you don't have a lot of people telling you how to do the trick exactly. Me personally, nobody ever skated with me. I was always on my own, so I had to figure it out myself. And even though if I make a trick tip, for example, that can only take you so far, still need to learn it yourself. So I'm gonna tell you how I learn tricks. So while learning a new trick, I'm always active in my head. So I'm always thinking, what's going wrong? So for example, if we take that example of a shove it, then let's say that the board doesn't make a whole 180. So now you can go through the trial and error and wait until you subconsciously made a bigger 180 and you land it. Or you can think about what's going wrong, and you can think about, well, the board is not making a 180, what can I do to make it spin more? And then for example, you might think, well, maybe I need to jump higher so I get more air time, so I land later. So that's an idea. Now you're gonna try that, but you're not gonna try it once, you're gonna try it multiple times. Try it for like 20, 30, 40 times, whatever. Don't just try it once, because that's not gonna give you a good view on if it works or not. So if you try it a lot of times, then you can figure out, did it work or did it not? If it does, then you just achieved something, you get closer to landing it, and you might have figured out a small motion, because now you know, oh, I need to jump high, okay, that's another motion I can add to the list. And yeah, if it doesn't work, you just get another idea. Maybe another idea is to swing your foot more, and then you try that for 20 times. Oh, it works. Another motion of the shove it is to swing your back foot a lot. And just like that, you can figure out the small motions of the trick on your own. And this way they really lock into your brain, because you found out yourself, and that goes a long way actually. And also you're really speeding up the trial and error, because you're actively thinking about the trick, and you're not just relying on your body to do it over and over and then by accident get closer to landing it, because now you know why you're getting closer, and that's a really big advantage. Reflect on when you can already do it. So when you are already able to do the trick, try to think about why can you do it now, because there are always a lot of things that you're still doing automatically without being aware of it. But if you do know, if you try to figure out afterwards how it works, then you will be able to understand the trick, understand how it works, how it's like set up. Me, I always do this. I always try to figure out as much things as possible, even though it sounds silly, because you're like, well, I already learned the trick, why should I waste more time on trying things with the trick? Well, that enables you to be like, well, if I do this a bit more, then the board will do this. And you figure out how longboarding really works, how your board reacts to you doing certain movements, and that takes us to the advantages, to the big advantages of figuring out the motions. So first off, like I said, learning tricks faster. Obviously, I already talked a lot about that. You now have instructions on how to do the trick. If you get instructions, you know what to work on, you know what to focus on. It gives you a mental boost, because now you have a goal, you have something to go for, instead of like just trying things out in the open, seeing if it works. That's really like exhausting your mind. When you're trying a trick, you don't know why it doesn't work. If you ever been in that situation, you know that that's one of the shittiest situations while learning a trick. So figuring out the motions doesn't only let you learn tricks faster, but it's also mentally easier to learn the trick. Another big advantage, and this is a huge advantage, probably the reason why I can learn tricks faster, is that it enables you to learn variations faster and learn other tricks faster too. Because if you figure out why your board reacts a certain way, for example, why your board spins more, then you can think like, oh, maybe if I do the same movements in another trick, then the trick will go like that. And this actually happens a lot. Like, so many motions in longboarding are the same, and you can recognize a lot of like small motions in a lot of like different tricks. For example, the shove it, because if you can do a shove it and you really figured out how that shove it works, you can also do a shove it cross land. You have a list of motions in your head, and you might be like, oh, maybe I just have to tweak this a little bit, tweak this, add a couple of extra motions, and then you can do a shoved crossland too. And there's like, that's a really simple example, but it's also for no comply variations, big spins, all sorts of tricks. If you can already do a shove it and you know how the shover really works, you are way closer to landing a big spin, because you just like, oh, maybe I just have to swing my back foot more and jump higher and make a little pivot more or something. Being able to point out all the motions really enables you to learn tricks faster. That's probably the biggest tip I can give in this video. And yeah, that's also where this whole video is about. I want to dedicate this whole video to it because I think it's that important. If you think about it, if you learn one trick and you don't focus on the motions that are going on in the trick, you've just learned one trick. But if you learn one trick and you learn the motions of it, then you learn the next trick, which probably will be easier because you've already figured out what works. There are a lot of things that cross over. Now you can do two tricks, different tricks, and you know the motions of it. Well, then you can learn like 4 tricks in the same time, because now you don't have to start all over again, because you already have fundamentals of how to do those 2 tricks. So now you can do 4 tricks. If you can do these 4 tricks and you can figure out the motions, there are probably a lot of like variations to these tricks too. So like that, you're really growing the speed in which you can learn tricks. The first tricks will be hard. Of course, it will always be hard to learn tricks, but you're speeding it up because you have this big fundamental, you have this big base of knowledge. Knowledge, man. Knowledge is the shit. I'm sorry. But really, like, you know a lot about tricks when you figure out the motions. And like that, it's way easier to learn new tricks, because you can always build on that versus starting at the bottom every time to learn a new trick. Another advantage is doing the trick more stylish, because if you figure out the motions, figure out what reaction your board does to a certain action you do, then you might be like, oh, maybe I can do it more stylish if I do this, if I jump higher, if I do this or this or this. And like that, you can like tweak the tricks a bit, because you're the master of the trick, you're the boss of them now. You know the motions, you know that's your trick, you own it. Now you can tweak it, you can play with it, make it more stylish. And yeah, that's another really big advantage. Another advantage is that you're now able to teach it to others. And this doesn't only make you an awesome person, but it also gives you an advantage, because like if you teach a trick to a friend, maybe after a couple of months he's like, hey, I learned it and I also found this cool variation of it. Maybe you want to try it. You're like, damn boy, that looks sick. How do you do that? He's like, oh well, you just do this and this, and now you're learning together. So like I said, we all grow the most if we grow together, even if that's cheesy F. I think it's really true. So as a conclusion, I think this was a lot of talking, but I also think this holds a huge amount of value, because for me as a slow learner, this has really helped me master the art of longboarding, because like I think this is even one of the biggest tips or secrets that I can give you that I've learned through all the years of longboarding, all the years of learning tricks and getting through that trial and error. So I really hope it helps you out too. If you have any thoughts, if you have any tips or anything, leave it in the description. Help your brothers and sisters out right here. I'm sorry if this setting isn't as beautiful as the woods on my previous video, but I'm in exams right now. I'm studying, but I wanted to make this video because I don't want to let you guys down. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for all the support. You guys have been crushing it like crazy, and I've been enjoying this like fuck, man. So big hugs from Belgium, and I will see you guys in the next one. Ciao.